So, straight away, is this the most important misconception in PvZ speedrunning? No. Is it going to save a lot of time? No. Is it at all valuable or useful to make this video? No. Am I going to talk about it anyways? Yes. Now, depending on your perspective, you might already have an idea on what this video will be about based on the thumbnail. Most casual players put their firepower in front of their sunflowers, but optimally, you'd rather lose a sunflower than lose firepower, so it's therefore better to actually plant them behind the sunflowers. What a subversion of expectations, right? Except, well, no. We're speedrunning, and so it actually takes less time for the bullet to hit the zombie if you plant it further forward, activating 50% rules faster, and therefore going quicker. Aha! Subverting the standard subversion of expectations. Except, consider that subversion of subverted expectations subverted, because I'm here to say that it just doesn't matter, like, at all. I know, what an exciting answer. But, as with most things in PvZ, the answer is basically, sometimes it's better to do it, sometimes it's better not to do it, but in both cases the time save is minimal. But hey, I find this interesting enough to write a 2,265 word script about it, so maybe you'll find it interesting enough to watch. So first of all, I need to establish exactly what it is that makes people believe that planting pea shooters further forward is time save, and in fairness, it still is time save, but to do that, I need to talk about the 50% rule. Basically, when 50% of the current wave's health is depleted, the next wave of zombies spawn. So, killing zombies faster advances a level faster, yada yada yada. There's more complications, but it doesn't really matter for this video. Let's take the example of a basic zombie versus one pea shooter. A basic zombie has 270 HP, and a pea does 20 HP of damage. I know that this doesn't add up to 10 peas to kill it, but that is definitely out of the scope of this video. 50% of 270 HP is 135, which means that at 6 Ps, 120 HP, the 50% rule will not activate. However, at 7 Ps, 140 HP, it will activate. Therefore, as soon as the 7th P lands, the 50% rule will be activated. So, planting pea shooters slightly further forward allows that 7th P to hit the zombie ever so slightly faster. If you plant it one tile further forward, it will speed up the 50% rule by the amount of time it takes for the pea to travel one tile. Let me make something clear here. The pea shooter does not attack faster. The way it was explained to me when I first started speedrunning was that pea shooters attack the zombies faster the further forward they are, which made me think it was way more valuable than it actually was. The pea shooter attacks at the exact same speed. Planting pea shooters further forward does not affect every single pea, it only affects a pea that will activate the 50% rule. It's not that minuscule time save per pea, it's per wave. Although, even that isn't really true. So, planting pea shooters further forward effectively only speeds up the pea that activates the 50% rule. But what about when the 50% rule isn't activated by firepower? Well, the time save is void. Planting pea shooters or any firepower further forward didn't help speed up the wave at all. And that's a problem, considering the fact that a ton of 50% rules are not activated by firepower. Let's look at all the ways that can happen. Rake kills, for the first wave of every roof level and half of the pool levels. Not activating the 50% rule at all, like we do at least once on almost every day stage, pool stage and roof stage. Lawnmower kills. Instant kills, of which we bring a lot of and are hoping to use every single wave. So, including firepower, there are 5 ways to deal with a wave in Plants vs Zombies. Firepower is common, especially on night and fog levels, but it is far from being a time save that happens every single wave. Especially when you consider that some firepower, like push shrooms, fume shrooms, gloom shrooms, and cabbage pulps, don't really get affected by this anyways. Like, gloom shrooms have to be one tile away anyways, push shrooms need to be planted close to the end of the screen to even be able to shoot, and cabbage/fumes take the same amount of time to reach column 9 as they do column 6. Considering that every night and fog level uses push shrooms extensively, and we use gloom shroom a lot, this time save isn't even a factor just in general a lot of the time. Now, I want to talk about a concept that I think is quite important in PvZ speedrunning. Maybe not for beginners starting out, but it's definitely something to keep in mind as you get better at the game, and that's the concept of the limiting factor. Bear with me, I swear this is relevant. The best example of the limiting factor is probably 1-3. 1-3 is a very simple level. You only have the sunflower, pea shooter, and cherry bomb. The only zombies are the basic zombie and the conehead. There are only 8 waves. It's a very short level and you need to make the most of your limited options. So instead of just using the cherry bomb in the final wave, you also want to use it during the level as well. However, the problem then becomes, when do you use the cherry bomb? Wave 5 has a scripted conehead, and coneheads are generally slower than 2 basic zombies, so it would make sense to save it for then. It also often lines up pretty well with the mower kill, as that usually goes off for wave 4. However, if you use the cherry bomb on wave 5, there's a good chance that it will still be recharging by the time the final wave comes, and you will just be waiting for it to come back. When you cherry bomb wave 5, you are guaranteeing that the level will last for at least 50 more seconds. You can only go so fast in waves 6 and 7 before you aren't actually saving time anymore, because you need the cherry bomb for that final wave. So, it's actually optimal to cherry bomb wave 4 and use the lawnmower on wave 5, although this requires a slow zombie in the first wave and for the spawns to line up, which they don't always do. That is a limiting factor in a nutshell. While I was explaining that, you might have noticed another limiting factor in 1.3, the lawnmower. No matter if it's wave 4, wave 5, or even wave 6, how fast a zombie makes it to the lawnmower is a limiting factor. It doesn't matter how fast you went in waves 2 and 3, so long as it's fast enough for the wave 1 zombie to reach the lawnmower in time. This sometimes even means that you can skip the cherry bomb altogether, eliminating that limiting factor. If the wave 1 zombie is really slow, and wave 4 can be shot by pea shooters, even though the cherry bomb would activate the 50% rule faster, shooting wave 4 with pea shooters produces the same result, except now you have an extra pea shooter on the screen and slightly more sun. You might be able to see where I'm going with this. Let's run through a very realistic way in which 1.3 can play out. Wave 1 spawns. It's a pretty average speed for the zombie, so you just let it walk. Wave 2 spawns. You shoot it with a pea shooter. Wave 3 spawns. You shoot it with a pea shooter. Wave 4 spawns. It's where the lawnmower is. You need to wait a few seconds for the lawnmower to activate, but you're not going to turn that mower kill down. Wave 5 spawns, and you cherry bomb it. Wave 6 spawns, you shoot it. Wave 7 spawns, the spawns are quite nice, and you kill it pretty quickly. It's time for the final wave, and you're waiting on cherry bomb recharge a bit. Throughout the entire level, practically everything was based on the limiting factor. The time save from the first few waves didn't matter, you were waiting on the lawnmower. The time save from waves 6 and 7 didn't matter, because you were waiting on the cherry bomb cooldown. Basically the only time save you got was from how fast you placed the cherry bomb in wave 5 and in the final wave. So even though 1.3 is a level where we only have one instant kill, and it's a very slow recharge, planting pea shooters further forward saved a grand total of 0 seconds. Now, 1.3 is a very extreme example of this, but my point is made. With the existence of limiting factors like cherry bomb recharge, lawnmowers, potato mines arming, body blocking, etc., the minor time saves from firepower activating rules ever so slightly quicker is void. The limiting factor does not mean every bit of time save is void, of course. For instance, you still need to go fast enough to beat the cherry bomb recharge to the final wave, but it is something to keep in mind. And for such minimal time saves, such as planting your pea shooters a tile further forward, yeah, that's not saving time. So how can we use this information? Well, the use cases for it are limited, to say the least, but there are a couple of minor optimizations that we can use if we stop thinking that planting firepower slightly further back is going to be the end of the world. The most obvious one is safety. A pea shooter or weep eater getting eaten is going to cause so much more time loss than the potential time save from placing it a tile further forward, especially on a level like 1.3. If the goal is to dig up the pea shooter anyways, like on 1.8, then yeah, planting it further forward makes a lot of sense. If the goal is for it to survive though, safety is definitely better. But there are some strategies that have come around recently that involve planting firepower slightly further back. My favourite one is the one that I came up with fairly recently, partly because of how damn ugly it looks. On 2.7 and 2.9, this is how we normally plant our firepower. 3 columns of sunshtreams, followed by 2 columns of scaredies, 1 column of fumes, 3 columns of puffs. How symmetrical. But what if I ruined that? Say hello to column 5 sunshtreams. Basically, I just swap column 3 and column 5 and create this ugly mess. So, what time loss comes from it? Well, if specifically the column 3 scaredy shroom activates the 50% rule, it will lose about 0.2 seconds that wave. Unless there's a limiting factor, of course. The benefit, though, is pretty neat, albeit also small. On wave 19, you often need to focus one zombie to utterly destroy it, as the 50% rule does not apply on wave 19, and you instead need to kill every zombie. So, you often use a hypno shroom on one guy and add more firepower to another one. With the former layout, the extent you could do was dig up a sunshroom in column 3 and replace it with a scaredy, maybe adding a pushroom if there's a spot available, although it's likely already filled or has a grave there. With this new layout, you can instead dig up a sunshroom in column 2 and replace it with a scaredy shroom, while simultaneously digging up a sunshroom in column 5 and replacing it with a fume shroom, potentially saving entire seconds due to needing less firepower cycles to kill the zombie. Is it a life-changing amount of time save? No. Is it an optimization? Yes. Is it funnier to see such an ugly layout? Also yes. Another small optimization is using column 3 repeaters instead of column 5 repeaters on 3-4 and 3-9. Column 5 repeaters require the vaulters to jump in order to kill them, adding another element to micromanage and spend sun on. With column 3 repeaters, the repeaters can survive forever. You might need to replenish some lost sunflowers, but that's better than being forced to plant more, and it's better to lose a sunflower than a repeater. Finally, to end this video, I want to put into perspective the amount of potential time save there is from placing your firepower one tile forward. I'm going to assume the best possible circumstance. This is a 3 flag level, so 30 waves total. Specifically, it's a 3 flag that uses repeaters instead of gloom shrooms. Every single wave has its 50% rule activated through firepower, even the first waves where that is extremely unrealistic. There are no limiting factors at play. You do not ever lose time for playing riskier with your firepower. Even if you're unfamiliar with PvZ speedrunning, you might be able to understand just how unrealistic this is. But this is the best possible circumstance. And do you want to know roughly how much time is saved from planting your firepower one tile further forward in this 3 flag level under the absolute best theoretical circumstances? About 2 seconds. Yeah, as long as you're not planting firepower in like column 1, you really don't need to worry about this. There are so many other ways to improve.